Welcome to the Church in the Wild podcast. You'll be hearing the words from worship from Sunday, August 2nd, 2026, where we begin our series on holy waters with a conversation on the ocean. If you want to find out more about Church in the Wild and all of our upcoming events and programs, just go to churchinthewild.org. Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Barb. And thinking about, because the oceans are today's specific type of water, thinking about how the oceans connect us with the divine is easy for me because almost every year since I've been an adult, I've made my way to the ocean somewhere, some point each year, just to sit and stare and be mesmerized by the waves and the changing tides. It's awe-inspiring, and I feel a very strong connection there. It's almost like the ocean itself is a giant living organism with the tides and the waves like its rhythmic beating pulse. The wildlife in and near the ocean is attuned to the beating of that pulse too. Animals know the timing of the high and low tides, somehow or another, and take advantage of both kinds of tides to find food, or to get free rides far up the beaches, or to hitch rides back out to sea. If you've ever been to a beach at low tide, you probably noticed the arrival of lots of shorebirds, those little like sandpipery things running up and down, scurrying by the water's edge. And they've been just waiting for the tide to recede so that they can excavate those tiny snails and crabs that are in their little hiding places just under the sand. And they know they have to work fast because the incoming tide will cover up their meal all over again. And then other birds, I don't know, does anybody know what an oyster catcher is? Have you seen oyster catchers? An oyster catcher, they have them all over the East Coast, but they're kind of like the size of gulls, but they're dark black, and they've got like red rings around their eyes and very reddish-orange bills. They're like, once you see one, you won't forget it, but they're not like right around here. They're like in New Jersey and places like that along the shore. Well, oyster catchers and gulls, they'll wait for the low tides to expose animals that are trapped in little tidal pools, and then they'll go right over there for the easy pickings since they can't get away. And my favorite parts are these things called rocky intertidal zones, which wouldn't even exist without the changing tides and the beating waves. Those zones are where like big rocky areas meet the shoreline. More in New England and in New York State than down south, but they have them everywhere. And the animals that live on those rocks are super specialized. The ones that need to be submerged most of the time live in the lowest zones of the rocks, and the ones that only need to be submerged twice a day when high tide happens, they live up higher. And some of them even live a tiny bit above the high tide zone, and they just like the spray, and they need the spray. So animals like barnacles, which seem like they're just dead, crusty things, but they're really not. They produce an extremely strong glue to hold them to the rocks and to live near the top of that high tide level. They know where it is. And so even in stormy seas and very strong waves, they don't get knocked off of those rocks. And then when the waves wash over them at high tide, it carries all this microscopic organisms with it that the barnacles need to eat. And since they can't move, they depend on the water to bring the food to them. And they have these tiny little, has anyone ever seen a barnacle like open its mouth and those things coming out? It's kind of creepy. They have these little hairy leg things that come out of its mouth and trap the food that's in the water and then pull it back into its mouth, and then it closes back up. Mussels usually cluster in that zone too, and they are similar. They cement themselves to the rock and feed what gets brought to them. And then in the middle zone, animals that need to be covered in water a little more consistently will live, like those small anemones, things like you see in a fish tank. Hermit crabs and shrimp can be found in the middle zone. They can survive above the waterline during low tide, but then they need to be covered up again at some point in the day with the water. And sea stars, which I always thought were called starfish, but they're sea stars. Sea stars will crawl up to that level from underneath, from below to find food. And they've got those suction cups all over their arms. They're called tube feet. And they can cling to the rocks and hold on in the strongest waves and the highest tides. And they love to eat mussels and oysters that they find there. And then the very lowest level stays underwater most of the day, and it only gets emerging during the lowest of the low tides. And that's where you'll find the sea stars all day, and sea urchins, and some of the really big sea anemones are down there. So all the animals know exactly where to be, depending on what their needs are for being underwater, above water, a little bit of both. And they pick the spot for their best chance of survival. And then the last part that animals depend on these waves for is things like horseshoe crabs that depend on the waves and the changing tides for their egg laying. So in May through June, probably not anymore this summer, but in May through June, the crabs take advantage of the extra high tides that happen when there's a full moon or a new moon. That's when you got extra high tides. And they know when that's going to happen. They mate and they ride far up the beach on those high tides, and then they bury their eggs in the sand right between the high tide line and the low tide line. Again, how they know this is amazing. And the reason they do that is so that the eggs aren't always underwater and exposed to marine predators, but they will be covered up by water at some points during the day, so they're not always exposed to land predators. And then when they hatch, they plan it for a new moon period as well, and they get washed back out at the highest high tides. And then the shorebirds that are migrating up from South America, they know all about this too. They know about these rhythms, and they time their migration so that they can snatch up those eggs as they get laid. It's got a lot of energy in those eggs, and it helps them get all the way up to the Arctic from South America. Turtles, too. Sea turtles, same thing. They'll lay their eggs on the beach. They'll take advantage of high tides to get up as far as they can on the beach because they're not very agile on the beach. So they want to walk as little as possible, and so they don't have to drag themselves around. So when I think about the ocean waves as a global heartbeat that sets the rhythm for so many creatures' daily lives, I can't help but feel connected to the Creator in that sense.
Hi, I'm Bill. I have a poem that's called The Ode to Our Ocean, which is almost as long as the Nature Connection. The sea sings out to its many saviors, teenagers with fists thrust into the air at climate strikes, scientists converging around their data, a child who stoops to scoop up a piece of trash. The sea sings out for its singular subjects, arching whales that wave from their waves, turtles that teeter down their shining shores, coral reefs shining brightly as cities. The sea sings out its suffering, knowing too much of waste, screeching sounds, and pernicious poison, its depths bruised by atrocities in the Atlantic, misery in the Mediterranean, its tides the preservers of time past. The story of the ocean and the story of humanity are one and the same, a great river that knows no borders and notes no lines, only ripples. While we might call it the seven seas, today we sing out your true name, the one ocean. For no matter how we try to separate your waters, you are the colossus that connects us. Water makes up 70% of the earth, 70% of the human heart, and 70% of the human being. All of us, bodies of water, for we too are oceans, or at least beings bobbing in the same boat. To stand up for our ocean is to stand up for our own ship. The sea is a restless, strong collective of many pieces. So are we. The ocean can recover, and so will we. Let us not divide the tides, but discover all that they have to teach us. Green meadows of sea grass that survive pathogens, blue-blooded marine snails that can fight off viruses. There are more lessons to learn, Still more work to be done, so we lift our faces to the sun. May the seas help us see healing and hope. May we sing out the ocean's survival and revival. Being the people of this blue planet is our most profound privilege and power. For if we be the ocean's saviors, then it is surely ours.
Hi, I'm Kaden. Our wisdom today comes from Catholic philosophy professor Peter Kreeft. The sea is the earth's most remarkable icon for God. Like God, she is beauty, ancient yet ever new, unchanging yet ever changing, eternal yet dynamic, immovable yet moving, timeless yet alive, formless yet full of personality, infinite yet definite, fearsome and wonderful, full of life and mother of all life, source and master of life and death, maker and breaker of living things, and like God, she is wild. Join me in the response to this wisdom in the program. The Spirit brood over the waters of creation. All life comes from the ocean.
Water! Woo! Perfect, actually, that it's raining. All water is holy water. There, I said it. It's true.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for finally saying it, Corey.
Yeah, it's all been blessed, right? Holy water is water that's been blessed for a special purpose. Well, let me tell you, in the beginning, right, if we're going with that same tradition that creates holy water, that creation story says the Spirit brooded over the water, flew over the waters that covered the earth. And they were good, right? God created water for a holy purpose, to keep us all alive. So, all water is holy water. And we are going to spend today and the next 4 Sundays, so 5 weeks, talking about water. And
You make holy water?
you poke a hole in it? I don't know, Bill. You boil the hell out of it. There you go. We are mostly water people living on a mostly water planet. And I could probably spend these whole 5 weeks talking about the incredible properties of water as an element. And so I'm just going to name really quickly, I'll try to fit this in each week, some cool facts about water itself. But the coolest fact that I've found so far recently comes from Dr. Masaru Emoto, a Japanese water researcher who did a fascinating study on water as the master listener, the receiver of all our sounds and vibrations, right? Water takes all of our energy, our vibrations. So what he did was he put water in a jar, froze it, looked at its crystals, and then spoke positive words or negative words to it. And then froze it again and looked at those crystals, and they were totally different. They looked beautiful and symmetrical when he spoke positive words, and they looked disjointed and cracked and ugly when he spoke negative words to it. And then he did the same thing with images. He put images of a dolphin or an elephant or a heart and put the water on top of it for 24 hours, froze it, looked at the crystals, and they mimicked the image. So the water crystal made a heart. Another one made this little image with like a trunk that was on top of the elephant. Totally cool. There's a kid's book about it here. If you want to take the book home and read it, feel free. Liz lent it to me after last week, and she heard we were doing water. She's like, you got to talk about Dr. Emoto. So this is for Liz. And he says at the end of the book, water carries within it your thoughts and prayers. As you yourself are water, no matter where you are, your prayers will be carried to the rest of the world. And we all know from Frozen that water holds memory, right? So he did the study that cute little line from Olaf was based on. That water holds on to our vibrations, whether spoken or image or just what we show up with to our water. And so Liz said in her work, she makes sure to speak positively to her bottle of water. You know, before drinking it, she'll put positive stickers on her water bottle to infuse her water with those positive energies. I didn't really plan it this way. I knew I wanted to talk about water this year for a month, last year. And then it turns out this year already, I've had 2 really cool new experiences of water. The first was being on a cruise and being in the middle of the ocean with no land in sight. That is a new experience for me. Has anyone else ever been out in the middle of a body of water and couldn't see land? Yeah. It's pretty wild, isn't it? It's a little scary. We can do it in not just on the ocean, but usually it's the ocean that you can get far enough out and then you don't see land anymore. It's a little unnerving, especially at night when it's dark and it's just dark, and you can hear the waves and you're like, what is happening in that? And then, it seems like the opposite, but then we went to the Grand Canyon. And that is the work of water, right? That incredible, beautiful, it was an ocean of canyon, of cliffs. It just went on and on forever. That's what I felt like. I felt like I was looking at ocean waves, but it was rock. But it's because water carved that rock. So water is really cool, and we get to experience it in so many ways. But for this series, what we're going to do is talk about a different body of water each week. So today we're starting with oceans. And then we're going to talk about the Great Lakes. And then we're going to talk about the Susquehanna River. I'm really excited about that one. And then we're going to talk about Sky Lake and smaller lakes and ponds, and then we're going to talk about groundwater. So we're going to try to cover all the sizes of water and types of water. Another really incredible thing I learned this week about the ocean. One ocean wave crashing upon the shore, just those few seconds before it breaks and disappears into the sand, contains more living organisms than the total number of human beings that have ever lived. Not just that are alive right now, 8 billion, right? More than have ever lived. Roughly 100 billion humans have lived, we estimate, and there are between 1 million and 1 billion microbial cells, depending on the location that you are in the water, in the ocean, in 1 liter of ocean water. So when you extrapolate that to the amount of ocean water in a whole wave, the number of life forms in that wave becomes impossible for us to wrap our brains around. More than all of humanity's existence. There are bacteria, archaea, I'm looking at Barb, viruses, single-celled algae called plankton, and phytoplankton, tiny zooplankton, fungal spores, and organisms that we haven't even named yet, because we don't really know what they are. The phytoplankton are these microscopic algae drifting through the sunlit upper section of the ocean. Those plants produce nearly half of all of Earth's oxygen. So every other breath you take came from the ocean. not from the forest. That's pretty cool. They also absorb an enormous quantity of carbon dioxide, making the ocean our primary carbon sink for the planet, meaning they absorb the excess carbon into themselves, like trees, right? They take in our carbon dioxide. But they're so plentiful throughout the ocean that they do more than trees can do. So the ocean is really important, right? These are important things. Creating oxygen for us, taking in our carbon dioxide, and as we've heard now, the source of all life. The ocean covers 71% of Earth's surface, and most of it remains unexplored. And part of me feels like maybe we should leave it that way. I don't know. I'm not one to like, let's go find every nook and cranny. Like, we can't breathe down there, so maybe we're not supposed to mess around, right? Kind of let the ocean do its thing. We've probably explored enough. We know there's some real crazy stuff going on down deep. All those wild animals.
I would say, usually what we touch, we usually touch the screw up anyway.
Yeah, let's leave it. Let's leave it. But it's,
We've mapped more of the moon's surface.
yeah, of the ocean floor. Yeah, exactly. And it's just as difficult to go exploring in the ocean as it is in space, right? You need all kinds of equipment and stuff. So when we think about the ocean, when we stand before it, I've had a moment with the ocean. Anybody else have a spiritual moment with the ocean? I remember sitting on the shores of this little like inlet cove on Orcas Island off the coast of Washington State, looking at the ocean and just feeling the power of it. It wasn't like big crazy waves or anything, but just feeling the energy of the whole ocean coming into that little cove and feeling it inside, you know, like it just like entered up through the ground. And I just had this like message of, this is your power too. Like we all have access to this. We are so much more than we think we are as just a little person. We are connected to the great power of the ocean, like it's within us, right? So it's easy to see why, as we heard in the wisdom, Dr. Peter Kreeft says the ocean is the Earth's most remarkable icon of God. Now, icons, you might not be familiar. They're kind of an ancient, well, not ancient. They're old ideas. It was basically a painting or a statue that you would use to help you pray. So you would stare at it in prayer, and it would help you feel like you were in God's presence. It would help you feel a connection. And when I read those words of the ocean is the best icon we have for God, I was like, hell yes, it is. Anybody can stand before it and feel the immense power and feel small, but then at the same time have that sense that we are connected to all of everything else. We're part of that immense power.
Seeing it though, last summer, it's like I was flying it out. It was like landing in Boston airport itself, and we flew over the Boston Harbor, which is like what I really thought of, like seeing it's like from up in the air, seeing the harbor.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know I saw some nodding heads. We've had moments with the ocean. Is there any other message you've received or feeling you've gotten when you connect with the ocean? Shout it out.
All right. There's been like, I was in Hawaii and it was like the ocean, I was observing it, and there was like waves crashing like on these really big beautiful rocks, And then when we were like actually at the beach, like it looked so calm, right? And you're just sitting there and you're like, wow, beautiful. And then all of a sudden, it's just like comes in like a wave, just will like swoop people up and like bring them back, and they're like, oh my gosh, you know. I know it's a beach notorious for like really big waves, and they say wash, but it's just crazy how like 1 second it can be so still, but then the next second like it could completely change course. So
Yeah.
It's kind of like one of those feelings of like that's kind of how life is, like, you know what I mean, like the push and pull of, you know, life, how like it'll drag you back, but then it'll push you forward as well.
Yeah.
Message
Yin yang.
type thing,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I gotta echo that, because like, it can be so serene and so beautiful, but, you know, people try to build houses right in these sand dunes, you know, and, I mean, you're asking for trouble because we can't tame that ocean. It is so much bigger than we are, and it's arrogant to confront it.
Yeah. There's no stopping water.
You know, I was in the Navy for 4 years,
Yeah.
and I worked on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier, and I know what you mean about being up there at night.
Yeah.
You look out and it's just total blackness in every direction. Well, really the best experience I ever had with the ocean is when I was on vacation. We were down in Wildwood, and at night when my first wife and the kids were in the motel, I went down to the beach and I climbed up in the lifeguard's chair at night, just listening to the ocean, and every once in a while you could see that phosphorescence on the foam, you know what I mean? And I just tripped. I tripped for like a half an hour. It was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's everywhere. And even though, like we say, this ocean, that ocean, it is one ocean.
Yeah.
No matter what name you give to it and whatever shore it touches, it's the same. That water that's here has been over there at some point and been up in the sky at another point and rained down on your front yard at another point. And it's just everywhere. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. The ocean is beautiful and awful, right? Like full of awe. It's a little scary. And that's another way that it's like God. It's like so powerful. It could just take you right out if you're not careful. It really, I mean, it has to lots of people. It's sad, right? But you got to respect the ocean.
You ever see those films of the tsunamis?
Yeah. Yikes.
Wipe out an entire city.
And truly, to us as human beings, the ocean is infinite, right? We know now we can go up in space and see it's not infinite. But on our planet, for a human being, it's basically infinite, right? It'd be like an ant approaching Sky Lake and being like, oh man, I'm not going in there. Like, it's infinite, it's immense. Yeah, it is infinite, right? It keeps going. It's mysterious, containing unfathomable depths. We have not reached the depths of the ocean. And like I said, I don't think we should. Let's leave it. What's that? Oh, I bet. All of these things make the ocean divine. It has all the same qualities as the Creator. It was the main tool of the Creator to bring life to planet Earth. All that we can't know about her allures us, right? It triggers our imagination to think about what's contained in her depths. We envision ourselves like miraculously existing down there, thinking about what it would be like. All those stories of Atlantis, right? Living underwater. And I think it triggers in us the memory, the desire to return to the womb in some ways, to be held in those other waters of creation that we all began in. We all had an aquatic life cycle before we were born into the land beings. We were water beings first. We remember ourselves held in that holy body of water and the deep connection that had to the source of all life. At one point, our planet was completely covered in water. There was no land. And from that water, tiny microorganisms came to life and started to produce oxygen and started to then create more sediment, and land began to form, and then life was able to crawl up out of the water onto land. But life began on a completely water-covered planet. From space, we are a shining blue marble. We are a water planet, teeming with life because of the ocean. So today, we are going to swim in a lake, but we know that water came from the ocean at one point in time. It was a glacier. It came here, left some water behind on its way back to the ocean. So let's give thanks for the ocean, for all that she gives us and does to support our lives and everything's life. And we thank our Creator for the ocean, for nurturing life and helping us experience a fullness of the divine and feel the immense power of our Maker through her waving waters. This meditation comes from a marine biologist, Emelina Corrales. It is called Ocean of Wisdom, and it is her imagining of what the ocean would speak or write to us as human beings. So get comfortable. You can close your eyes or find a gentle gaze and take in this wisdom from the ocean. Dear child, arrange yourself in a comfortable position and get ready to travel. Today, I will take you into my currents so you can experience directly how all life is sustained. We begin our journey at the North Pole. Breathe in and admire the beauty of the North Atlantic glaciers. Breathe out and listen to the rumbling thunder as big ice blocks break off and fall into the water, making it colder. In winter, if it's cold enough, new salt-free ice is created, leaving behind increased salinity. These cold and salty waters, full of nutrients, sink deep to travel fast along the eastern coasts of the Americas. We are now near the coast of New Jersey. Beneath my waters, deep inside the Earth's crust, fresh water is hidden in aquifers. You would not expect to find fresh water here under my most salty waters, but so it is. Freshness can be found in mysterious places, even in the darkest ones. Continuing our journey south, I move like a snake along the mid-Atlantic ridge, dividing the American plates on one side and the Eurasian and African plates on the other. Yes, what you see are underwater mountains. When they're tall enough, they become islands. And when they are very large, you call them continents. For me, they are my children, where land-based life flourishes. As we arrive between Patagonia and South Africa, circulating alongside Antarctica, we find more cold and deep waters. The current gets stronger and divides into two pathways. The wider one goes north to the Indic Ocean, while the other continues along the coast of the ice continent, with some water eventually moving up into the Pacific Ocean. Heading north, these currents start to surface, sharing the nutrients that support oceanic life, which feeds humans and other animals. Remember, child, the waters of the planet are like blood nourishing the body. They transport nutrients and clean waste, including waste that comes from human activities. Large sewage tubes, for example, enter my body. As waste travels deep within me, it's transformed and reinserted as nutrients in the water cycle or stored in the ocean floors. We continue our trip north along the east coast of Africa to the turquoise and warm surface waters of the Indic Ocean, where marine life blooms in extravagant ways thanks to nutrients we have been carrying. In this region, olive ridley sea turtles arrive by the thousands to the beach of Orissa on the east coast of India to lay their eggs in huge arabata, knowing that the hatchlings will find enough food to thrive. Remember that the deep waters which gathered nutrients on their way south through the Atlantic Ocean were divided into two in the Antarctic. The rich waters that travel along the ice continent support the life of large whales and swimming birds, the penguins. This current continues its path to the Pacific, traveling along the Ring of Fire, a horseshoe-shaped belt of volcanoes around the Pacific Ocean. The current starts to warm up, and many types of large fish travel with me. The beautiful tunas enjoy the abundance of food and the strength of the current to exercise their fast tails and strong muscles. We have reached the furthest end of the thermohaline circulation, where one can find my oldest waters, some of them moving along with the current while others are stored in the shadow zone of the Pacific, trapped in cavities on the North Pacific Ocean floor. Now it is time to start our way back, together with the whale sharks and large marine mammals. In the South Pacific waters, for reasons which still remain largely mysterious, the El Niño or La Niña southern oscillation takes place. Waves of hot or cold surface water move toward the Americas, affecting the rain cycle through changing evaporation conditions and modulating the average weather around the world. These phenomena allow the planet to self-regulate and have started to change as human activities disrupt climate patterns. The Pacific is a very special place for me. Its human inhabitants, living on a multitude of small islands, have long understood and cherished my wisdom. They are the guardians of these sacred waters, taking care of my oldest memories in the north and in Mother Earth's kidneys in the south, the root energetic center that guides the global water cycle. On my way back through the Indian and Atlantic Oceans, I recover some parts of myself that nourish life along the coast of West Africa. As I move north, I gather the warmth of the Gulf Stream in the Caribbean Sea and bring it to the shores of Europe, allowing its inhabitants to enjoy a temperate climate, now threatened due to human-induced climate change. Dear child, this is a short version of the story of my waters traveling around the planet to sustain life. It is part of a broader cycle of life that I have witnessed and nourished for eons. Creation and destruction are always present in this cycle. I usually do not speak in a clear voice. I use the waves and the beauty of the horizon to help you experience my wisdom. But my health is declining rapidly, and I want you to understand that you need to take care of me so I can continue to take care of you. Otherwise, I will recover, but in the process of my recovery, humans will suffer greatly. I need storms, huge waves, and changes in the rain cycle to restore the natural order. You belong to nature. We are all part of the great cycle of life, and each of us needs to find its place and role in the sacred order. It is time for me to go. I have shared my wisdom and my love with each of you that wanted to travel with me. But before I go, I want you to hear my final words. Who am I? I am the grandmother of every water drop on this planet. I am the vast ocean that goes deep into the darkness of ocean ridges. I am the power of a storm. My waves sing lullabies to all beings. My oceanic currents are rivers of life. I, Grandmother Ocean, have given life to this planet. I am the nourishment that sustains life. My ancestral wisdom emanates from the planet's history. Each one of you needs me strong and thriving to live. Here I am calling your attention to remember that we are one. One planet, one ocean. May it be so. Deep peace of the running wave to you. Deep peace of the flowing air to you. Deep peace of the quiet earth to you. Deep peace of the shining stars to you. Deep peace of the source of peace to you. And we'll sing peace, salam, shalom.
Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom. Peace, salam, shalom.
Thanks for listening. If you want to support Church in the Wild and the work we do in striving for environmental and social justice, just head on over to our website, churchinthewild.org, and click the donate link at the top. There you can make a donation, set yourself up as a recurring supporter, or you can buy something from our Redbubble shop. We're so glad you're with us on this journey, following the Spirit through creation, adventure, and restoration. Until next time.